of those folks out there that are thinking about investing passively to really think about that. You could be a co-owner of one of those properties in your neighborhood or in your backyard somewhere, or perhaps not even in your backyard, in some market where it makes sense to do real estate investing for cash flow and appreciation. You can do that too if you partner up with the right people.
Welcome to the Threefold Real Estate Investing Podcast. This is the podcast where you'll not only learn how you can achieve massive success in multifamily real estate investing, but also how you can simultaneously pursue great relationships with your family and a better walk with God. You can achieve financial freedom through real estate investing without sacrificing the relationships that mean the most to you. Now, here's your host, Lee Yoder.
Welcome back, Threefold listeners. I hope you're having a great week this week. It is finally warming up and it's sunny and not raining anymore here in Ohio. So I'm excited. We got Chris Price joining us from New York City today, a guy I just met a little while ago and really enjoyed his background and his outlook on things. So wanted to get him on the podcast. So excited to share him with you today and his experience and his expertise. But a little bit about him, then we'll bring him in. Chris is an award-winning corporate professional, pharmaceutical executive, and leader with over 20 years of business operations experience in the life sciences industry. In addition to helping patients receive life-saving medications at a top 15 pharmaceutical company, Chris is the CEO and co-founder of Red Fox Multifamily, a real estate investment company aimed at providing life science industry professionals with hands-off commercial real estate investment opportunities to recession-proof their retirements. Chris is an active, accredited real estate investor and entrepreneur since 2012. With investments today in real estate syndications, funds, single family, and land. Chris is also the host of a 950-member plus wealth mindset and real estate investing virtual meetup. That's a tongue twister. And then today, Chris has invested in over 482 commercial multifamily and single family units and counting. I think that changed as he was just telling me. But as both a passive investor and a general partner across Texas, Georgia, and Alabama. Chris's biggest accomplishments are his family. He is married to his lovely wife, Allison. Together, they have two beautiful children. Chris, that was just a little bit of your background, but man, thanks so much for joining us today. Excited to talk to you.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah. So Chris, why don't you start? I think it's since 2012. So take us back there. You know, I think you're doing the same thing, but just like a little bit of what did your life look like? What were you doing? And then what got you interested in real estate? Why did you jump into investing passively in real estate?
Yeah, it's a great question. So yeah, my journey is not too dissimilar from those that you might have had on your show in the past, and those other stories that you've heard of those people that become accidental landlords. My wife and I, we were in a situation in 2012 where that little girl that we mentioned, Zoe, that's getting ready to turn 11 this week. We were getting ready to move into our new home. And we didn't want to sell our condo that we had at the time because we had bought it at the height of the market back in 2006. And, we didn't want to take a loss on that based off of where we would sell it at. And so we said to ourselves, hey, let's just rent it out. So when we moved up to our new house and we then held on to this little condo, and that little condo was rented very easily, and it turned out to be a really solid cash flowing asset for us. And then the market recovered and things continued on, and we said, hey, this is really a great thing. We started to catch that bug of being landlords and real estate investors. And then we looked at this and said, hey, this is pretty interesting. What if we were able to add some more of these single family or condos to our portfolio and scale from there? So that's kind of how we got into this whole idea of real estate investing in general. And I know we'll go throughout the conversation as we go on today, but that's just a little nugget about how we got there. And then I'll explain a little bit more later.
Yeah, that's awesome, Chris. And you're right. I don't think it's too dissimilar. There's a lot of folks out there that figure out or find out about real estate somewhere. And a lot of times it is being an accidental landlord. Like for some reason you just need to rent out a house. You're not living there, but you don't want to sell it, can't sell it, whatever. Right? Like you see it and you go, wow, this is, because I'm guessing for you too, Chris, like I'd never heard of that. I didn't know anybody that owned rental real estate. So you see it for the first time and you go, just simple numbers. Like we bought something for $100,000 and we're making $5,000 a year, just a 5% return. That's cool. But like, that's not even including the fact that the person that lives there, they're the ones paying off the $100,000, and they're paying off $2-3 grand a year or whatever. So like, wow, like we're just sitting here making $5,000 a year. Like you said, especially if you have a condo or something like that, something that's pretty easy to rent and keep rented. And you just sit there and make $5,000 and they're paying off the loan. You're like, well, this makes a lot of sense. Like, yeah, what if I did more of this? Right. So, yeah, so you're at that stage. Yeah. Thanks for setting that up for us, because I do think, yeah, whether you're active in it and see it that way, but at some point, the light bulb goes off and people go, this makes a lot of sense. I should do more of this. And we didn't even get into, some of the other tax advantages and things like that. So once you figured that out, Chris, did you start gobbling those up, or did you decide to go bigger or jump in other people's deals? What did you do next once that proof of concept really took hold?
Great question. So for the next 9-10 years there, we had focused on maximizing that investment as a little cash flowing asset. It was cash flowing. We would take advantage of it and do some cash out refinances, take some of the equity out of that place, and do some things that we wanted to do, and sort of strategizing to build our portfolio. But really, as we started to get into this, we thought to ourselves, hey, we are really enjoying this idea of being real estate investors. How do we scale this? So like many other people, I went deep down the rabbit hole of reading all the books, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad books, Cash Flow Quadrant, all of the books that in podcasts and meetups and all of those things, and started getting exposed more and more to the idea of real estate investing. And so my wife and I, we talked about maybe we should go about doing this where we can actually buy up a bunch of turnkey single family rentals throughout strategic markets in the country. And when we looked at that, we had designed a game plan to be able to execute this fully. We knew how many single family homes or up to fourplexes we needed to be able to reach our quote unquote financial freedom number. Because of course, in the real estate investing and passive investment journey, many people talk about this idea of financial freedom and passive income. And this was a foreign topic to us. We hadn't heard of it, but it was certainly something that was very intriguing as corporate professionals with a young family who were doing great in their careers, but we wanted to also be able to generate some passive income. And so when we looked at that number, though, Lee, in terms of the number of single family homes that we would have to acquire to be able to reach our financial freedom number, that number was daunting. It was a lot. It was a lot. And we said, hey, there has to be a better way. And in that journey of listening to podcasts and books, I kept hearing this idea of, hey, you don't have to go to single family and graduate up to multifamily. You can just go straight to multifamily. I'm like, this is very interesting. So, lo and behold, I'm joining various different meetup groups. One of the meetup groups that I happened to join was actually a meetup group that was for multifamily. And I started networking and learning about multifamily real estate and syndications and networking with different operators. And I found myself then started to get exposed to this. And, lo and behold, my wife, when I went back to tell my wife and said, hey, babe, remember we were talking about doing single families and buying up these things, a few times, a few properties year over year. Hey, I would like to change that a little bit to now focus on multifamily passive investing into into syndications. And she looked at me and she said, okay, let's look at it, but don't we have a plan? This was our plan. And I'm not very familiar with multifamily.
I've done that to my wife a few times. So yes. I'm with you on this, man. Yeah. Yes. I know this conversation.
So that's right. So I shifted, I pulled the carpet out from under her a little bit, but she got on board with it. I got her educated, helped her understand why and the approach. And so lo and behold, we started focusing on passively investing into syndications. And I found myself in 2021 in multiple deals and across the Southeast, in the Midwest, focused on, building our portfolio that way instead of trying to buy up single family rentals throughout the country. So that's how we got into this whole idea of multifamily syndications.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's another story that's pretty common, Chris. I mean, and I went through a little bit of this myself. Very similar, where you again, proof of concept. So it's like, okay, let's do this. And yeah, maybe you just have a single family. For me, we had a duplex, and it was like, okay, this is awesome. Like we make this much every month. And as long as we own this property, we're always going to make this much, right? I mean, if it's rented, there's some, but for the most part, in general, we're going to make this much. And again, and they're paying off the loan for us. This is amazing. So it's like, well, let's do this a bunch more times. But then you do that math and you go, what if we did this 10 more times? And you're like, man, well, that's still not like doing that much. I'm not quitting my job or anything. What if we do it 20 more times? Okay. Yeah. 20 more times. Maybe I quit my job. It's still not setting the world on fire, but like it replaces my income or something. but do I want to buy 20 duplexes? I didn't. And, it sounds like you kind of did some of the same calculations. So then you say, well, what else can we do? And a lot of times it is, let's go bigger. Like instead of buying 10 single families, what if we bought 120 unit, and I'll say, one unit inside a 20 unit doesn't cash flow like a single family, but if you can get 20 at a time, it's a lot easier than getting 10 single families. You can probably make the same amount of cash flow. So you start doing that. And you say, well, let's do this passively. That's where you've gone, Chris. And it's a lot of your focus now. And you've got this great meetup and you're teaching so many other people to kind of do the same thing. So where do you start with people? If someone comes to you and says, well, Chris, I'm pharmaceutical sales too. And I'm pretty interested in real estate, but yeah, I don't have time to do it actively. So I kind of want to do what you're doing. How do they get started, Chris? What are some of the first steps that you have them take to make sure they're ready to invest passively in a multifamily syndication?
Look, I'll tell you, I will tell those individuals that, ask themselves the question, do they want to be dealing with the tenants and the termites and the toilets, as they say, right? And and in fact, when I was managing that single family condo that we had, I was doing all that. I was the guy taking those phone calls. My wife wanted nothing to do with it. We had one bad round with some tenants that really kind of affected us, and we wanted to, and we had to evict them. And that process in New York, especially, was really painful. And so we went through all those things, and it was really painful. So I tell the people who think that they want to manage properties or actively invest, to really ask themselves that question: do they want to be dealing with those things, or do they want to be able to vet an operator that is doing this full time, that can operate a property, that can handle all of those things with experienced professional property management, to be able to successfully execute a business plan on their behalf, and position those things. Even if you are handy as a a lot of my friends out there that I know are super handy, like, oh, I can manage that and I can do this. No, I would tell you that your time is better spent vetting a solid operator who can execute the game plan that is needed on some value add opportunity from a real estate syndication perspective, and then you placing your money in their hands to be able to do that, and then you get to sit back, passively invest, and reap all the benefits of being a real estate investor. I mean, like that when I learned about this, I was ticked off that I didn't know about it. I had no idea, never heard about real estate syndication, thought it was a swear word. Come to find out that you can do this. And those apartment buildings that I drive around here in the New York City area are in fact more than likely owned by some group, and that I could potentially invest in those things. And that just blew my mind. And so I put in the mind of those folks out there that are thinking about investing passively, to really think about that. You could be a co-owner of one of those properties in your neighborhood or in your backyard somewhere, or perhaps not even in your backyard, in some market where it makes sense to do real estate investing for cash flow and appreciation. You could do that too if you partner up with the right people. So that's what I'd say, Lee.
Yeah, that's really good, Chris. It just made me think, like, you talk about, or do you want to do this actively? Do you want to deal with the tenants, termites, and toilets, or do you want to let a professional do it full time? It just made me think, like, I could probably come in and try my hand at your job for a little bit, Chris. And there might be parts of your job I could do. Like on your easiest day, I might skate by and I could play the part of Chris Price in your job. But inevitably, something comes up that your 20 years of experience and all the other stuff. I mean, there's so much there, but like something comes up and I'm like, I have no idea what to do. And inevitably, some people find that out about real estate. Like sometimes you get in and things go really well. The tenant just stays in place and pays on time. And like that can happen. But inevitably, then the really hard part of the job comes up. And if you're not, good at it, experienced, and you're kind of not all in on it, you're trying to do another job and you got kids and you're doing all this other stuff, you find out, shoot, this is hard. This is like a job. This is a different job. And maybe I'm not that skilled and I don't want to be all in on it. And then you find out, like you said, oh my gosh, there's guys and girls over here. This is all they do. This is what they do. So like when the hard things come up, like they know how to do it because they've been doing it for, 5, 10, 20 years. I think that's a really good point. I appreciate you laying it out there. And so you talked about, would you rather be vetting an operator? I think that's such a good point. I think that's the most important thing. So I'd love to spend a few minutes on that, Chris. How do you do that? So I think you laid it out well when you said, well, if I'm talking to someone, I'm going to say, do you want to be doing this 10 termite toilets, or do you want to vet a sponsor? I think a lot of them are probably going to be like, I'd probably rather just vet a sponsor and let them do the work and I'd invest. Okay, but how do we do that, Chris?
Right. And so, look, I'll tell them a couple of things. One, even within the sponsors, you're going to all of us as real estate investors, we want to focus on great markets. So once you start to find out, hey, what markets do I want to be in? Do I want to be in the Carolinas? Do I want to be in Ohio, Columbus, Cincy, Cleveland, Akron, wherever it is? Do I want to be in Texas and other parts of the Midwest and Southeast, that Sun Belt? Wherever it is, you want to know those markets, and then you should find yourself as a passive investor, joining, going to meetups, whether
Yeah,
that's in
right.
meetups or whether that is virtual meetups, and networking with those operators. I mean, when you talk about free access, free information in a world that's going to open you up and educate you to help you, invest in alternative investments like a roof over people's heads, which people actually need,
Hmm.
and diversify outside of the stock market. This is something that you want to be. You can be in these rooms with these people. You can network with these operators. So I would
Right.
say get to these meetups, and then if you can get to these meetups, a step up above that perhaps is even getting to some of these conferences that a lot of major firms start, whether those conferences are big conferences in certain markets. One of the, not endorsing any of them, but some that I've attended Brad Sumrock's Rat Race to Retirement.
Okay. Yeah.
He's had I've attended Dealmaker Live from Michael Blanc, so many others. These people, you can get to these conferences and network with people and get to know, like, and trust these potential operators. Once you've done that, you want to understand, hey, what's their track record or level of experience do
Yeah.
they have?
Right.
Are they focused on the markets that you are focused on, that you believe in from an investment standpoint? Or what about their investment profile? Have they successfully come full cycle on certain deals?
Hmm.
What have they hit or exceeded their projected returns? Those are types of things that you want to be able to look at, to be able to truly understand whether or not you're aligned on interest and on markets. And if once you've done that, like I said, it's pretty easy at that point in time from an experience perspective to say, hey, I believe in this operator's experience more than they believe in myself to figure out how to turn a single family into a jewel. I'm going to believe in this 150 unit property that they have under contract, that they've successfully done this proof of concept
Yeah.
before,
Right.
and I'm going to
Yep.
go and ride on their coattails and take advantage of it. That's what I would encourage passive investors to do.
Yeah, really good stuff there, Chris. I heard, figure out what location you want to be in, then you're going to be looking for sponsors in that area. And if there's meetups, even virtual meetups in that area, you're going to meet, or just the big conferences, you're going to have a chance to meet those sponsors, to vet them in person. They'd be happy to sit down with you. That's what they want to do, is sit down with the passive investors, and you can vet them in person and ask those tough questions. And that's where you can get a feel for somebody, right? Whether, they're trustworthy, or they being, forthright with you, making eye contact, answering your questions directly and things like that. The other thing I was thinking about that, Chris, is when you're at these meetups and you're networking, going to conferences, you can also very likely find other people that have invested with that sponsor. That's as good as it gets right there, as far as, getting a good idea what that sponsor is going to be like before you ever invest with them, because you just talked to somebody else that had, right. And then was just thinking about the track record. And I like what you said there, Chris. What I kind of pulled out of that, you said, what is their track record like? And you said in the specific market. And I'm thinking even in the specific class of investing. So to me, it's like, well, we've been operating apartments and we've done really good for the past 10 years. That's awesome. But today you're buying a Class A in downtown Atlanta. Have you done that before? And that's kind of what I heard you saying with the track record on the specific market. Like, have you done exactly what you say you're going to do? Have you done that before? Hey, Threefold listeners, just wanted to take a quick second here to promote our sponsor, a company that I'm a big fan of, done a lot of business. I'm a very happy customer of Prominent Title Agency. They are a full service title and escrow company licensed in Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, Tennessee, Michigan, and Florida. They handle commercial transactions of all types and sizes, including multifamily, retail, industrial, hotels, medical buildings, restaurants, gas stations, golf courses. They are very experienced and efficient in handling large portfolios, including multiple properties and or multi-states, as well as entity transfers in Ohio. My guy over there is Rob Calabrese. He is the division director for Prominent Title Agency's commercial real estate division. Being a licensed attorney and title agent in Ohio and Kentucky, Rob has strong knowledge the complex world of commercial real estate. He also offers legal services in all aspects of commercial real estate. Guys, I've worked with Rob a lot. We're getting a deal under contract now, and I told the broker, I said, man, I really want to work with Prominent Title. Just trust those guys over there. They're great. They're quick. Love working with those guys. Now, back to the show. That's really good stuff. Chris, I always like to ask my guests, all this being said, what would you say, and let's maybe stick to passive investors because that's kind of, what we've been talking about here. What do you think makes is that key ingredient that makes for a successful passive real estate investor?
Wow. Look, for a passive real estate investor, I think there are probably a couple of keys, but the two that I would focus on is one, being decisive, and two, being a good assessor or judge of character.
Yeah,
There's something to be said about this, right? We all come across people as we interact in our daily lives, and I think everyone has you don't judge a book by its cover, but when you get a chance to interact with these people and you get a feel from that. And I do believe that there's something innate in us that gives us that gut feeling or that intuition that we have as human beings to be able to read the other person and say, hey, this person, hey, they have my best interest in mind. And yes, I'm going to do my due diligence, the whole trust but verify thing. But I feel really solid about this individual that I'm talking with, and they give me that feeling, that confidence that I can trust them, and that I can think I can invest my hard-earned money with that individual. And I know it's in good hands, and I'm likely to see my return. And then on the other side of that, when it comes to being decisive, look, I interact with a lot of investors, and it's okay if you're not ready. It's okay if you're still thinking about things. Look, I said a little while ago, when I got exposed to syndications, I was floored that this was even possible, that I could even do this. And so I understand that emotional process that people are going through, and that, hey, I'm still trying to feel you out and understand, but this sounds I'm really excited and I want to go ahead and do this. But if you're not ready, say that. Take your time and really get to learning and educating yourself, which is the most important thing about this. When you are educated, and you that helps you operate from a more informed position, and then that therefore translates into being a more decisive investor. So when that investment opportunity across your desk, and that it's checking all of your boxes from your market, as we talked about earlier, it's checking off those boxes from an investment perspective, in terms of the projected returns that you said that you were going to set your threshold to invest in. Then you can be decisive and say, yes, this is the opportunity I'm going to pursue, and I'm going to finish my due diligence. And once that opportunity is presented in front of me, I'm going to go ahead and make that investment. So those are the things that I would say that passive investors should focus on.
Yeah, that's really good, Chris. And I always like to ask, kind of flip that question on its head a little bit and ask, what is the key ingredient for having success at home with faith, if that's important to you, but certainly your family, which I know is important to you. What's the key ingredient? What are maybe you and your wife doing to make sure, hey, while you're busy doing the W-2 and, investing passively, trying to have this success in real estate and help others to have this success in real estate, how are you making sure you're having success at home as well?
Yeah, so it takes as you know, Lee, it takes a huge investment for us to do this. My wife and I are busy professionals. We are also busy entrepreneurs, and we have families and friends and all the other demands that everyone else has. But we take it upon ourselves to really pride ourselves into trying to invest as much as we can into being what we call being a blessing for others. And what I mean by that is, when we found ourselves on this real estate journey, as people who were just completely and entirely exposed to just traditional ways of investing in our 401ks and IRAs, and dealing with the volatility and up and down of the stock market, and thinking to ourselves, hey, there has to be better ways, and how do we really get ourselves to expand and grow and provide generational wealth to our families? Like, we're busting it here. How can we do better? How can we provide more to our families? We said to ourselves, once we started learning about this idea of passively investing and shifting over into actively investing, that really triggered something in us to think about how we can then be blessings to others. And what I mean by that is now we have the opportunity to bless others by educating them on this asset class that not a lot of people know
Yeah.
about.
There you go.
And
Yeah.
when they can do that and they can diversify their incomes and maybe help themselves build generational wealth for their family as they now invest in this asset class of multifamily syndications. And perhaps there'll be others as we continue to diversify our portfolio over time as well. But being a blessing to others is something that fuels us, and that's what keeps us going every day.
Yeah, that's awesome, Chris. I really appreciate that. And I know others have gained a lot of value from that. And so if people want to learn more and want to find out, I think redfoxmultifamily.com, Chris. And then thanks for sharing this. I see that we got a free webinar here. If you go to redfoxmultifamily.com/webinar, we'll put that in the show notes as well. So those are good places to go and learn more about you guys and then learn from you guys. Right, Chris?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And in addition to that, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect.
Yep. Okay, great. We'll put all that in the show notes. Hey, Chris, before I let you go, this has been awesome, man. Appreciate you sharing all this with us. Before I let you go, I always like to ask our guests, how might my listeners and I be praying for you in the coming weeks?
First, I really appreciate you even making that offer. When I was having a chance to just listen to past episodes of what you do, really, it really just means a lot, and it's just such a unique approach. And I just
Oh,
ask
cool. Thank you.
for your prayers and your listeners' prayers to continuing to help us on our journey to be a blessing to others, to help us
Awesome.
communicate an effective message to folks, to help them expose and learn this space of multifamily syndications so that they can build wealth without Wall Street.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. We'd love to pray for that with you, Chris. Man, love what you guys are doing. So we'd love to pray that God continues to bless that, blessing you to bless others. That's awesome, man. That's the heart of the gospel there. So be happy to do that. Well, Chris, thanks again, man. This has been really helpful. I think vetting a sponsor, finding a good operator is utmost importance. I think, your story, people can relate to that, get in. Do you want to do the termites, toilets, and tenants? No. You want to do passively? Great. You've got to find a good operator. So thanks for sharing with us about how to operate. You guys want to learn more? Check out Red Fox Multifamily again, and we'll put all that in the show notes. So follow Chris and find out more. So thanks, Chris. Have a good one, bud.
Thanks, Lee. Take care.
Thank you for joining us for another great episode. I hope you'll take action on what you've learned today. If you enjoyed today's show, please consider leaving Lee a 5-star rating and review. And check him out on threefoldrei.com. Until next time, 1 Timothy 6:17.